Hi, Bloody Recapped here. Today I'm going to talk about the 2016 thriller Transformation. Keep your eyes open and stay focused. The action takes place in Kansas, in the bathtub. While Renee is getting ready to take her son to school, she notices a spider which frightens her, for she is a neglected arachnophobe. Her son Elon arrives and is about to kill the spider, but his mother asks him to just take it outside. A little later, the son draws his manhwa, and mom asks him to get ready so she's not too late, while the camera watches them from the lamp. In the kitchen, she searches for her favorite knife and puts it in her back pocket, arranging for her son to do his homework. At this time, a car pulls up to their house and the driver puts a bug on Renee's car. Elon freaks out about his homework, and Renee comes downstairs and calls her son into the car. As they leave the yard, they are being followed. In the car, her friend Margaret calls her saying she bought tickets to jump off the plane, but her husband calls her telling her to come home with her son. He's not going to school today. They return and Renee argues with her husband about his message shouting at her, which Elon overhears. He asks her to promise not to get killed. She of course promises and asks not to worry, saying she loves her, and drives off while the car still follows her. The driver of the car behind her says it's time, and the passenger presses the button on the remote as immediately Renee's tire explodes. She pulls off the curb and the man drives by. A van stops behind her, and the man comes over and pretends to be a good citizen who agrees to help. The stalker pulls up, and when the van passenger gives the sign that all is clear, the man grabs her and they immobilize her with a stun gun, duct taping her face. They get her into the van and restrain her legs, and the stalkers leave to repair the vehicle. Inside, the woman says she has a long drive ahead of her, so she cuts her pants and unbuckles her leg so she can take off her panties, and if she has to pee, she goes to the driver's cab. The kidnapping convoy pulls out. At this point, Renee slides off the bench and reaches into her jeans where she pulls out a knife, but the van shakes and she drops it. Then she tries to pick it up with her feet and succeeds, and she hides it in her shoes. They arrive at the gas station and get out of the car, which really hears. But the woman who kindly brought her a drink comes right back to her. She cuts the tape around her mouth and lets her enjoy the drink, but it turns out to be a solution with sleeping pills. They check out again, and Renee passes out. When she wakes up, men have already entered the van and put a bag over her head. They wheel her in on a gurney and take her to a room where she finds the guy who repeats the code to her, G1012X, as immediately the guy is rolled away, and she is picked up and wheeled through the corridors. Upon arriving in the operating room, the woman asks the guy to take off the duct tape and bring her pants. She sees the guy open the doors with a strange bracelet. She looks around the room where she notices a table with tools and is immediately struck by panic. The guy comes back with the pants, but first he's going to take the tape off her face. He dabs the duct tape with a gel that will soften the glue and begins to carefully cut the duct tape off her face, marveling at her skin. Then he takes on Renee's pants. She's about to break free, but he warns her that if he does anything to her, he'll do it quickly. He leaves the office and a woman's screams come from the vent. She pulls a knife out of her shoes and convulses as she tries to push it to herself. There's a voice coming from the vent who introduces himself as Blake. He asks what her name is and she answers Renee. Then he talks about the room where they take everyone and do things to them that they're afraid of. And Renee asks what G1012X means. The guy in the room told her that, but Blake doesn't know what it is, and we hear a woman come into his room, starting to scold him for making noise, and we hear his eyes being drilled. And while Renee is cutting the straps, a man and a girl come into the operating room and turn on the bright lights and put on their glasses, saying that they will be recording everything so they can figure out what went wrong next time. Renee asks them to let her go. She promises to remain silent, saying she has a son, but they call his name and she thinks they have him. The man replies that the boy is at home with his father, and the girl asks her to breathe steady while she takes her blood pressure. When they start asking her questions about her name, height, weight, she thinks they are government officials, but they only lift up the couch and start checking her eyesight, and she still begs not to touch her son. The man dictates numbers testing her hearing, then lists diseases. She should answer yes or no if she has had them. Then he lists her bad habits and fears. At arachnophobia, she shuts up and they all understand. The girl draws Riley's blood with a syringe, and the man sniffs it out and tells her what she will feel, but doesn't fully understand what it is. She continues to cut the belt on her arm while a man with a case heads into her room. She drops the knife on the floor and the man walks into the office. The girl calls him Dr. Lenslin and he says she has good color, then sniffs her out. He pulls out a syringe with a liquid that will speed up some kind of process. It is a stimulant to new life, and Renee loses her strength before her eyes and falls asleep. She sees herself being brought to a new room. Another dose of the substance is injected, and the girl is also lapping up Renee. She sees her son locked in a room and a spider crawling right in front of her eyes. But she wakes up, and Dr. Lexland says that he liked her dream. She assimilates the liquid not like everyone else. They are about to take her away, and she looks at the fallen knife. In the real operating room, the girl says they only want to help her, and a compartment opens over Renee from which an arm isolation mold comes out, and when the girl presses a button, a hatch opens in the tube and a terrifying spider crawls out of there. It slowly crawls down the tube to Renee's arm, and the girl tells her that it is one of the most dangerous spiders, whose bite makes the spinal fluid boil. Renee is shaking with fear, and the girl says nothing yet, and the man brings the spider back. Once again our doctors talk in riddles. The man thought everything would happen after the first test, but the girl thinks it will be on the second. Renee is brought into the room and the man again takes to sniffing her out. They talk about some kind of transformation in which she will stay for the rest of her life, and leave her to rest. But she immediately rushes to get her hand out of her harness and succeeds, unbuckles all the straps and grabs a bandage and a knife and heads for the vent. She removes the bars, and begins to crawl, leaving notes along the way so she doesn't get lost. She sees a woman with a fear of heights being tortured, then a guy with a fear of his father, and something happens to him. But when the window opens, she crawls away, hearing screams behind her. The guy who told Renee the code is drowned to erase his memory. She finds something that looks like a toilet and gets out by kicking out the bars. Deciding to do some business, she wipes down the window and sees the van and her car there, but she hears someone coming and climbs into the nightstand. The men are talking about a successful transformation in Budapest. It's a successful 46, and they haven't had much luck lately. All the girls are barren. Back in the vent, she found a ladder upstairs, where she already felt the freedoms on the roof of the building, but the hatch would not open. She returns and finds Blake, who is not going to run away with her. He has one last test because they found G1012X in his skin and a snake crawling out of his legs. Then there's a sound at the door and Renee hides under Blake. A whole group walks into the room. They inform Blake that this is the last test and he will go back to his home in Nevada. But before they do, they inject him with sleeping pills. A snake gets to Renee, but the man immediately removes it, and the woman begins to take Blake away. Renee gets out and follows the gurney, hiding behind the door. And as the woman leaves, Renee keeps the door closed and goes out into the corridors herself. Renee finds the elevator, but it needs a bracelet to run it. She leaves the elevator and in a window on the hallway she notices a computer with states where they find people, and notices a locker with bracelets. She goes inside and tries to break it, but she hears the toilet flush and quietly climbs back out. And when the man comes out of the bathroom he takes off his lenses and turns out to have inhuman eyes. In the hallway she finds the guy who was drowned dead. She hears someone coming and climbs into the closet. And on the hallway they say the kid was close to transforming, but now it's Renee Morgan's turn. She senses danger and climbs back into the vent. She returns to the ward and straps herself in while she is already being followed with a syringe. In the room, Dr. Lexland leaves to tell her that the process is about to begin, and the girl asks Renee to hold still so the process is less painful. She touches Renee's stomach and says she will help her son with math and emotion control, but Renee doesn't understand how she knows this, and the girl says they read people with their skin. G1012X is a genetic code that they extract from human DNA, and when they extract it Renee will know what to do next. The girl is going to show her who they really are, and takes the lenses off while Renee takes the syringe in her hand. And while the girl is sniffing her out and showing her facial deformities, Renee stabs her in the neck with a syringe and she falls. And when Renee fails to remove her bracelet, she rolls her onto a gurney and drags her behind her. She manages to turn on the elevator and goes to the second floor, where she finds the lab and sees a place for her tests. But the office is entered and she hides behind a closet. They discuss Renee's egg, which won't allow human sperm to pass. She's probably only willing to let them pass, and the man senses that someone has left the office. Renee runs down the emergency corridors, where they follow her, but then turn back around for some reason. Renee runs into the branching room and decides to run into the darkness. He checks in and finds Renee with a heat sensor. He closes the doors on her, and when he sees this Renee doesn't have time to get out and the room begins to be gassed. A man comes in and watches her pass out. She wakes up in the room 104, wearing new clothes and not tied up. They come back into the room and tell her that it has been 1.5 days, but she says she feels less than that. They explain to her that people like them feel time differently. They do not wear out like humans, and they start dictating numbers, which she successfully repeats, and then reads very small print from a tablet. The head doctor says that she must become like them herself, and suggests that she take one last look at her son, because after the transformation she won't be able to feel love. They also ruin her fantasies of running around the building without their supervision. They like those with a heightened instinct for self-protection. They try to indoctrinate Rena that humans are a virus, and they are helpers of the gene pool to help either transform people or eradicate them. It's time to cut to the chase. A chair is brought into the room where they put Renee in and secure her. Then they put on a helmet and launch a huge number of spiders into her face. They leave her alone with her fear. Then they open the window and begin to watch her, opening the stand and releasing her. She starts scurrying around the room and blows her voice and then tries to smash her helmet against anything. But at one point she stops for some reason and the transformation process begins to take place. She turns into a monster with 3 pupils and we are transported to her house. She's talking to the head doctor about how to lie to people properly, and she notices a spider that she sneaks past her son and releases outside. Renee watches an interview with Blake, who was actually let go, but was brainwashed and told how a sphere came down on him and pulled him in where he saw creatures who wanted to know everything about people. Evan texts her about running out of milk, but in the kitchen she offers to make him croutons, but rejection follows, after which she tells him that she has found friends who can help him with his math. But Evan notices that Mom is acting strangely and refuses. The doorbell rings. It's her friends arriving. They ask where Evan is, saying they will only use these tools if absolutely necessary, and then they tell her that she is still fertile, that is, ready to carry the baby. They follow Evan upstairs and Renee tells him to run. He turns out to be a nimble boy and successfully escapes the creatures. The chief physician convinces Renee that they will not look for Evan, because she will find him herself when her emotions are gone all the way. He calls her the mother of a new generation and is finally glad that she has become one. Support the channel by subscribing, like, and on notifications, because with it you will be the first to know about the video. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.